He walked into her cheap motel room, and the mafia boss said, "You'll never sleep scared again." The name I gave the clerk was Jessica Riles. It tasted like ash in my mouth, thin and unfamiliar. The man behind the grimy plexiglass partition did not even look up. He just grunted, slid a tarnished brass key across the counter, and took my cash. $65 I could not spare, for a room that probably was not worth $20. "Room 107 backside," he muttered, already turning his attention back to a tiny, flickering television in the corner. I snatched the key and hurried out of the lobby, pulling the thin collar of my jacket tighter. The air at the edge of Camden Hill was thick with exhaust and the smell of damp pavement. The vacancy sign of the Royal Inn Motel buzzed, its neon O flickering like a dying heartbeat. This place was not royal, and it was barely an inn. It was a place to disappear, a place where people came to be forgotten. It was perfect. My arm throbbed, a deep, radiating ache from my shoulder to my elbow where Dean's fingers had dug in. I kept my head down as I walked along the cracked concrete balcony, past rooms with curtains drawn tight even in the late afternoon gloom. A door opened 2 rooms down, and a man peered out. I flinched, turning my face away, and hurried my step. Room 107 was at the end, nearest the highway. The key stuck twice before the lock finally turned over with a heavy, grinding thunk. I pushed the door open, hit the light switch, and was immediately sorry I had... The single overhead bulb cast a weak, yellow-gray light over the room. The carpet was a tapestry of old stains. The wallpaper, once a cheerful floral pattern, was peeling in long, curling strips near the ceiling. A smell of stale cigarettes, old beer, and something sour hung in the air. There were 2 beds, both covered in thin, pilled brown bedspreads. I did not care. It had a lock. I shoved the door shut and immediately fumbled with the deadbolt. Sliding it into place, I turned the chain lock and clicked it into its groove. It was not enough. I looked at the flimsy wooden chair at the small, laminate desk. I dragged it across the floor, the sound scraping loudly in the small space, and wedged its back firmly under the doorknob. Only then did I let myself breathe. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like they were filled with wet sand. I had been running for 6 hours. I leaned back against the door, my eyes sliding shut. The image was right there, waiting for me. Dean, his face purple with rage, the apartment, our apartment, torn apart. My duffel bag, the one I had packed so carefully over the last 2 weeks, ripped open on the floor. My clothes, my toiletries, the $300 I had saved, all scattered. "You thought you could just leave me?" His voice, not shouting, but low and venomous. That was always worse than the shouting. "You really think you're that smart, Nora?" I had frozen. My hand on the doorknob, the lie I had prepared, that I was just going to the store, dying on my lips. He had seen the bag. He knew. "Dean, please," I whispered. "It's not working. We're not working." "We are not working." He laughed, a short, ugly sound. He crossed the living room in 2 strides. I flinched back, but he was too fast. He grabbed my arm, the one that was aching now, and spun me around, slamming me against the wall. The plaster cracked. The framed picture of my mother, the only one I had, fell to the floor and the glass shattered. "You do not leave me," Wes, he hissed, his face inches from mine, his breath hot and smelling of whiskey. "You are mine. You think anyone else wants you? Damaged goods? You think you can just walk out?" He had shaken me then, like a rag doll, my head snapping back and forth. The violence was not new, but this cold possession, this righteous fury was terrifying. He was a small-time runner, a thug who thought he was a gangster. But the men he worked for, the ones who supplied the drugs he ran, were not small-time. Dean had grown colder, more reckless, since he had started working for them. I had brought my knee up, hard. Desperation giving me strength I did not know I had. He had grunted, his grip loosening just enough. I had not looked back. I had not grabbed my purse, my phone, or the money. I had just wrenched the door open and run. I had run down the 3 flights of stairs, barefoot, my keys cutting into my palm. I sprinted to my rusted-out sedan, jammed the key in, and prayed. The engine had turned over. I had seen him in the rearview mirror, bursting out of the apartment building's front door, shouting my name. I had driven until the gaslight came on, taking random turns, heading out of the city until Camden Hill's grimy outskirts swallowed me whole. Now, in the motel room, a sob tore itself from my chest. It was a dry, painful sound. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the filthy carpet. I was free. I was terrified. I was so tired. My eyes burned. I could not sleep. Not yet. I had to think. I pushed myself to my feet and went to the grimy window, peeking through a crack in the heavy polyester curtains. The parking lot was mostly empty. Just a few semi-trucks parked at the far end and a couple of beat-up cars. No sign of Dean's black muscle car. Not yet. I turned back to the room. I had nothing. My purse, my wallet, my phone, all left behind. All I had was the duffel bag I had grabbed on my way out of the apartment. Not my escape bag, but the gym bag I had left by the door. It had a change of clothes, my waitress uniform, and a bottle of water. I unzipped it. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely work the zipper. I dumped the contents onto the bed that was farthest from the door. A rolled-up white apron, a black t-shirt, a pair of worn sneakers, and a small, heavy metal box. I stared at it. It was about the size of a deck of cards, brushed silver with no markings, no latch, no visible seam. It was cold to the touch. Dean had given it to me 2 days ago. He had come home in a celebratory mood, waving it in the air. "Got a little bonus, baby," he had said, his eyes bright and unfocused. "Boss man is happy with me, said I'm moving up." "What is it?" I had asked, shrinking away from his manic energy. "Just a little something, a gift." He had tossed it to me. It was heavier than it looked. "Hold on to it for me, will you? Just keep it safe. It's valuable." I, stupidly, had asked no more questions. I had just nodded and slipped it into my gym bag, wanting to end the conversation. I had forgotten all about it until now. A gift. Dean never gave gifts. He gave bruises, and he gave excuses. A sick feeling washed over me. This was not a gift. This was something he was hiding. And I had it. I needed to get rid of it. I looked at the toilet, but the box was too big, too solid. Throw it in the dumpster outside? Someone might find it. The highway? My head was pounding. I could not think straight. For now, I just needed to hide it. I looked around the room. The cheap particle board desk had a drawer. I pulled it open. It was empty except for a single, sticky coin and a pamphlet for a local pizza place. I put the box inside and slid the drawer shut. It did not feel safe enough. I pulled the drawer all the way out of the desk. Scraping the wood, I reached into the dark space behind it, felt the dusty floor of the desk's shell, and placed the box in the farthest corner. I shoved the drawer back in. It was the best I could do. I had to sleep. I was no good to anyone like this. I would wake up a few hours before dawn, and I would walk to a bus station. I would go somewhere, anywhere. I stripped off my jeans and t-shirt, wincing as the fabric pulled over the raw skin of my arm. I was covered in bruises. I left my bra and underwear on and crawled under the thin, stiff sheets of the bed by the wall. I did not turn off the light. I lay there, staring at the water-stained ceiling, my body vibrating with adrenaline and fear. Every sound, a truck's air brakes, a laugh from the next room, the rattle of the ancient air conditioning unit, made me jump. Sleep was impossible, but exhaustion was a tide I could not fight. My eyelids grew heavy. The sounds of the highway blurred into a dull roar. The yellow light of the room seemed to dim. I was falling. Dean was pulling me down, his hands around my ankles. I was screaming, but no sound was coming out. The pavement was rushing up to meet me and... boom. My eyes snapped open. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it hurt. I was not falling. I was in the motel room. And the door to my room was gone. It had not been opened. It had been kicked in. The wood of the jamb was splintered and shattered. The chair I had wedged under the knob was in pieces across the room. A man stood in the doorway. He was huge. He did not just stand in the frame, he filled it. He was wearing a dark, impeccably tailored suit that looked like it cost more than my car, my apartment, and my life combined. His hair was black. His face was all hard angles and shadows. He looked completely out of place in this cheap, filthy motel, like a panther that had just walked into a dog kennel. He took one step into the room. His eyes were dark, and they were not looking at me. They were scanning, cold and assessing. They swept over my meager belongings on the other bed, the broken chair, and then they landed on me. I scrambled backward, pushing myself up against the flimsy headboard, pulling the sheet up to my chin. A scream was lodged in my throat, but I could not make a sound. My entire body was frozen in a way that made Dean's violence feel like a child's tantrum. This was not a thug. This was a predator. His eyes locked on mine. There was no anger in them, no lust, just a flat, cold assessment. He looked at me for a long, silent second. Then his gaze flickered down to my arm, to the dark purple and black bruise that covered my bicep. His expression did not change, but something in the air did. He had been a force of nature, a storm breaking down the door. Now, he was just a man, still and silent, staring at me. He took another step into the room, his expensive leather shoes silent on the disgusting carpet. "The box," he said. His voice was low, a deep rumble that vibrated through the room. It was not a shout, but it held more command than any shout I had ever heard. It was calm. It was absolute. "Where is it?" I could not speak. I just shook my head, my teeth chattering. I don't... "Do not lie to me," he said, his voice dropping even lower. He was not threatening me. He was stating a fact. "I tracked it to this room. I know it is here. Give it to me." He thought I was a thief. He thought I worked for someone. He thought I knew what I was doing. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. But the sound that came out was a choked sob. "I don't know what you're talking about," I whispered. "It was the truth. Please, I don't have anything. I don't have any money. Please just go." His eyes narrowed. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt stripped bare. He saw the terror, the exhaustion, the old faded yellow bruise on my cheekbone that makeup usually covered. He saw the waitress uniform dumped on the other bed. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice had changed. The ironclad certainty was still there, but it was layered with something new, confusion. My name is Nora," I stammered, forgetting my lie. "Nora Wilkes." He took a step closer, and I flinched so hard I hit my head on the headboard. He stopped. "And the box?" he asked, more gently this time. If such a word could be applied to such a man. My boyfriend." The word felt like poison. "He gave it to me. He said to hold it. I didn't know, I swear, I didn't know what it was. I was running." Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and unstoppable. The dam of adrenaline that had kept me going for hours finally broke. The fear of Dean, the escape, the lack of sleep, and now this. This mountain of a man who had broken down my door as if it were paper. It was too much. I crumpled, curling into a ball against the headboard, my hands covering my face as I sobbed. The sounds were animal, torn from the deepest part of me. I was going to die here, in this motel, at the hands of a stranger, all because of a stupid metal box Dean had given me. I just wanted to leave. I cried into my hands. I just wanted to be safe. "I don't know anything about it. I swear, I swear." The room was silent, save for my own wrenching sobs. I waited for him to grab me, to hit me, to end it. Nothing happened. After a long minute, I heard the sound of wood scraping. I peeled my fingers away from my face. He was pulling out the desk drawer. He reached into the dark cavity behind it and pulled out the metal box. He looked at it, his expression unreadable, then slipped it into the inner pocket of his suit jacket. It vanished inside the expensive wool. He looked at me. I was still sobbing, unable to stop, my body shaking violently. He did not leave. He just stood there, watching me. He was a statue of judgment, and I had no idea what my sentence was. He pulled a phone from his pocket, a sleek, black device. He hit a single button. "Renzo," he said, "I have the package. The location was right." He paused, his dark eyes still locked on me. "But the situation is complicated." He listened for a moment. "There is a girl here, Nora Wilkes. She's running from a man named Dean Maddox. Find out who he is. Find out what he is. And find out where he is. Now." He hung up without saying goodbye. He put the phone back in his pocket. The silence stretched. I'd cried myself out. Now I was just hiccuping, my body trembling with the aftershocks. He's going to find me," I whispered, the words raw. "Dean, he's going to find me. He'll kill me." The man's face remained hard, but his eyes... Something had shifted in his eyes. The cold assessment was gone, replaced by a flicker of... I did not know what. It was not pity. It was something harder. Recognition. Maybe. "He won't find you tonight," the man said. My head snapped up. "What?" "You will stay here. I will stay here." He motioned to the other bed, the one with my clothes on it. "My man will be outside the door. No one will come in. No one will go out." I stared at him, my mind unable to process his words. You're staying?" "I need to understand what this is," he said, more to himself than to me. "I need to know who she is and why he had my property." He walked over to the broken door and looked out into the hallway. I saw a shadow move. A second man, shorter but built like a fire hydrant, stood outside. The man in the suit spoke to him in rapid, low Italian. I could not understand a word. The man outside, Renzo, nodded and disappeared. The man in the suit turned back into the room. He looked at the broken door, then at me. With one hand, he lifted the heavy, solid wood door, which was hanging from a single, mangled hinge, and set it back into the frame. It did not close, but it blocked the opening. Then he dragged the heavy desk, the one I had hidden the box in, and shoved it in front of the door, barricading us in. The room, which had felt like a trap, suddenly felt like a fortress. He turned to me. He did not sit. He just stood near the window, a dark silhouette against the buzzing neon light from outside. "Sleep," he said. It was a command. "I can't," I whispered. He was quiet for a long time. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, read a message, and his entire body went still. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Luca," he said, his voice flat. "What?" "My name is Luca Moretti." He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something that looked like anger, but it was not directed at me. It was a cold, controlled rage. "Your boyfriend, Dean Maddox, he doesn't just run drugs, he works for the Costa cartel." The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, the way the name tasted like poison in his mouth, told me everything I needed to know. "They are my enemies," Luca Moretti said. "The box you had was a GPS tracker for a shipment of theirs I intercepted by giving it to you, your boyfriend. He either tried to set you up, or he is the stupidest man alive." I don't understand." "You don't need to." His voice was sharp. "All you need to know is that he works for them, and now they, and he, have lost a very valuable shipment. They will be looking for it, and they will be looking for anyone connected to it." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "That means you, Nora, you are a target." The breath left my body. I was not just running from Dean anymore. I was running from men like Luca, men who kicked down doors, men who dealt in trackers and shipments. I looked at him, my last thread of hope snapping. "What are you going to do to me?" He looked at me for what felt like an eternity. His gaze was heavy, searching. He was weighing options, making calculations I could not begin to guess. Finally, he spoke. "For tonight," he said, "you are under my protection." I stared at him, trembling. This man, this terrifying, violent stranger, was my protector. "Why?" I whispered. He did not answer. He just looked at my bruised arm. A shaky, weak wave of gratitude washed over me. It was so potent it made me dizzy. You didn't hurt me," I stammered, the words sounding stupid as soon as I said them. He looked at me, his dark eyes unblinking. "Get some sleep, Nora." He walked to the single, flimsy chair that had not been broken and sat. He did not take off his jacket. He did not lean back. He just sat, one hand resting on his knee, a sentinel in a suit. I lay back down, my heart still hammering, but the bone-deep terror had receded, replaced by a stunned, exhausted fog. I watched him. He did not move. He just watched the barricaded door. I did not know who Luca Moretti was. I did not know what he wanted or what would happen to me in the morning. But as I lay there, in that filthy room with a broken door and a strange, dangerous man sitting in the corner, I felt something I had not felt in years. Safe. The exhaustion finally won. My eyes drifted shut. I was back in the apartment. Dean was there, but his face was wrong. It was melting, shifting. He grabbed my arm, and his fingers were like steel talons, digging into the bone. "You're mine," he hissed, his voice echoing. "You'll never get away. Never." He was pulling me into the floor, into the darkness, and I was screaming, screaming, screaming. Nora. I bolted upright, gasping, my shirt soaked in sweat. My scream was still echoing in the small room. The room was dark. The overhead light was off. The only light came from the buzzing neon sign outside. Luca was there, and he was not in the chair, and he was standing by my bed, looking down at me. I recoiled, scrambling back against the headboard again, my heart trying to escape my chest. "You were dreaming," he said. His voice was quiet, not gentle, but quiet. I could not catch my breath. The nightmare was still clinging to me, its cold fingers wrapped around my throat. He did not move, did not reach for me, did not try to comfort me. He just stood there, a solid, unmoving presence in the dark. He waited. My hyperventilating slowed, my sobs quieted, the room slowly came back into focus, the peeling wallpaper, the smell of cigarettes, the dark, expensive suit of the man standing by my bed. I wiped my wet face with the back of my hand. "I'm sorry," I whispered, ashamed. "There is nothing to be sorry for," he said. He turned and walked, not back to the chair, but to the other bed. He sat down on the edge of it, facing me, but not looking at me. He was looking at the door, at the faint line of light from the hallway that peeked around the desk. He did not say anything else. He just sat, a silent guardian. I lay back down, my body still shaking with tremors. I watched his back. He was perfectly still. I listened to the sound of his breathing. Slow and steady, I listened to the rumble of the trucks on the highway. And, for the first time in as long as I could remember, I fell back asleep, and this time, the nightmares did not come. I woke up to the smell of stale cigarettes and the color gray. The thin curtains of the motel room were doing a poor job of blocking out the morning, and a flat, lifeless light filled the small space. For a second, I had no idea where I was. Then in a cold rush, it all came back. The escape, the run, the splintered door, Luca. My head snapped toward the chair. He was still there. He had not moved from the spot he had taken after my nightmare. He sat as still as the cheap furniture, a monolith of expensive black wool in a room of particle board and polyester. His suit was not even wrinkled. He had not slept. His eyes, dark and unreadable, were fixed on the barricaded doorway. As if he sensed my gaze, he turned his head. His eyes met mine. There was no softness in them, no good morning, just that same unnerving, assessing stare. My heart gave a painful little kick, a rabbit's thump against my ribs. "Get your things," he said. His voice was rough from a night of disuse. I flinched, pulling the pilled brown blanket higher. My first thought, wild and panicked, was that he was kicking me out, leaving me here for Dean or those Costa people to find. "What? Where?" You are not staying here." He stood up, and the small room seemed to shrink by half. He was all broad shoulders and imposing height. He walked to the desk he had wedged against the door and, with one arm, slid it aside as if it weighed nothing. He looked at the shattered doorframe, his expression one of pure disgust. "Pack," he commanded, his back to me. I don't have anywhere to go," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Please, you said I was safe." He turned around slowly. "You are," he said, his voice flat. "You are coming with me. You are a vulnerability. As long as you are out here, you are at a loose end, and I do not tolerate loose ends." He was not offering me a choice. He was stating a fact. I was not a person to him. I was a problem to be managed, a piece on a chessboard I did not even know existed. But right now, being his problem was the only thing keeping me alive. I scrambled off the bed, my bare feet hitting the cold, sticky carpet. My few belongings were still piled on the other bed. My hands were shaking as I stuffed my spare waitress uniform and my sneakers into the gym bag Dean had given me, the bag that had started all of this. I wanted to leave it, to burn it, but it was all I had. When I was done, I stood there, a small, pathetic figure in a wrinkled t-shirt and underwear. Holding a duffel bag, I felt stripped bare, exposed. Luca's eyes flickered over me, and he looked away, a muscle tightening in his jaw. He gestured to the small, grimy bathroom. "Get dressed." I hurried inside, locking the door. Though I knew the lock was useless, I splashed cold, metallic-smelling water on my face and stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror. I looked like a ghost. Dark circles, pale skin, a fading bruise on my cheek. I looked like what I was, hunted. I pulled on my jeans from yesterday and the black t-shirt from my bag. When I came out, he was waiting by the open, broken doorway. The man from last night, Renzo, was standing in the hall. He was shorter than Luca, but just as broad, with a shaved head and a face that looked like it had been carved from rock. He nodded at Luca, his eyes completely ignoring me. "Let's go," Luca said. He did not touch me, and he just walked out, and I followed, like a stray dog that had been offered a scrap. Renzo fell in behind me. I was being escorted. I was a prisoner. We walked out into the bright, ugly morning. The Royal Inn Motel looked even worse in the daylight. The paint was peeling, and trash was collected in the corners of the walkway. My old sedan was still in the parking lot, looking as out of place as I felt. "My car," I said, stopping. "Forget it," Luca said without looking back. "It's the first place he'll look." Of course. I hurried to catch up. Renzo opened the back door of a gleaming black SUV. It was enormous, with windows so dark I could not see inside. It looked like something a president would ride in. The interior was a shock of clean, cold air and the rich, overwhelming smell of real leather. I slid in, and Luca got in beside me, not opposite me. He shut the door with a heavy, final thud. The sound of the buzzing highway, the distant sirens, the entire world outside was instantly silenced. The quiet was terrifying. Renzo got in the driver's seat, and the vehicle pulled away smoothly, gliding out of the parking lot. I did not look back. I sat pressed against the door, my duffel bag on my lap like a shield. I could feel the heat radiating from Luca's body. Though he was not touching me, he was staring straight ahead, his profile stern and perfect. For 10 minutes, the only sound was the faint hiss of the air conditioning. I watched the grim landscape of Camden Hill's outskirts blur past. Pawn shops, boarded-up factories, check-cashing places. "The men your boyfriend works for," Luca said suddenly, making me jump. His voice filled the small, silent space. "The Costa Cartel. They are not like him. He's a dog on a short leash. They are the ones who hold the leash." I swallowed, my throat dry. I just stared at him. "They are not from here," and he continued, his voice cold and didactic, like a professor explaining a difficult concept. "They are poison, seeping into places they do not belong. They do not have rules. They do not respect boundaries. They hurt people, women, children, anyone. To make a point, they burn everything they touch." He turned his head, and his dark eyes pinned me. Dean was a runner. He lost a very valuable package for them. That tracker you were holding? It was my way of finding that package. Now, thanks to him, the package is gone, and so is my tracker. The Costas know they have a leak. They know something went wrong, and Dean, in his stupidity, involved you. I didn't know, I whispered. It does not matter what you know, he said, cutting me off. It matters what they think you know. To them, you are a witness, a loose end. Dean is a dead man, whether he knows it or not, and if they find you, you will be, too. Do you understand? The cold, blunt finality of his words hit me harder than a slap. This was not about an abusive boyfriend anymore. This was about an entire organization of violent men who wanted me erased. What about the police? I asked, the words sounding naive and stupid even as I said it. Luca almost smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The police cannot protect you. They will put you in a safe house. A Costa-affiliated officer will leak the location within an hour. You will be dead before the paperwork is filed. The SUV turned, leaving the industrial wasteland and heading up a steep hill. The buildings became cleaner, taller. We were heading into the center of Camden Hill, the part I only ever saw from a distance. So what happens now? I asked, my voice barely audible. What do you want with me? I want the Costas out of my city, he said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. You are, for now, a complication. I am removing you from the board so I can play my game. You will stay where I put you. You will not talk to anyone. You will not leave. In exchange, you will not die. The car descended into a private, brightly lit garage under a towering glass building. The garage was empty except for 2 other black cars, just as expensive as ours. Renzo parked, and the engine died, plunging us back into silence. We are here, Luca said. He got out, and I followed him to a stainless steel elevator. He pressed his thumb to a small, dark panel, and it lit up green. The door slid open, we got in. There was only one button, a black square with no number. He pressed it. The elevator moved up, fast and silent. My ears popped. I felt like I was ascending to another world. The doors opened. My breath caught in my throat. We were not in a lobby. We were in an apartment. No, that was the wrong word. It was a cavern of glass and steel. The elevator opened directly into a massive living room, at least 3 times the size of my entire apartment. 2 entire walls were floor-to-ceiling windows, and the view. It was the whole of Camden Hill, spread out like a glittering, dirty carpet. I could see the river, the bridges, even the cluster of cheap motels we had just left, looking like tiny, insignificant blocks. The furniture was sparse, minimalist, and screamed money. A huge, low-slung white sofa, a black marble fireplace, a kitchen so sleek and metallic it looked like it had never been used. I had never seen wealth like this. It was obscene. It was terrifying. This is where you live?" I whispered. "This is where you will stay." Luca corrected me. He walked past me, pulling off his suit jacket underneath. He wore a black button-down shirt and a leather shoulder holster, which held a large, black handgun. He unstrapped it and set the entire harness on a glass table. Seeing the weapon so casually displayed made my stomach clench. I backed away, bumping into the elevator doors. They were closed. There was no handle, no keypad on this side. I was locked in. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The luxury, the view. It was a cage, a beautiful, expensive, inescapable cage. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "No, I can't stay here." Luca turned, his expression hardening. "I am not asking." "You don't understand," I said, my panic rising, my words tumbling out. It's just like him. He said he was protecting me, too. He said I was his. He locked me in. He told me what to wear, who to talk to. I'm not doing it again." I was breathing too fast, my eyes darting around, looking for an escape that did not exist. I am not trading one owner for another. I would rather die out there. I lunged for the elevator, pounding on the smooth steel doors with my fists. Let me out! Let me out of here! In a second, he was on me. He did not grab me. He did not hit me. He just put his hands on my shoulders, his grip like iron, holding me still. He was so strong, and I was so weak, so tired. "Stop it," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Let me go," I sobbed, struggling against his grip, but it was useless. I was a bird in a steel trap. "Look at me." He gave me a small, firm shake. "Look at me." I forced my tear-filled eyes to meet his. They were dark, intense, and for the first time, filled with a cold, simmering anger. "This is not a game," he hissed, his face close to mine. "I am not your depraved boyfriend. I do not want you. I am protecting you, because you are a link to my enemies. Your options are this. You stay in this apartment, you eat my food, you live, or you go out that elevator and you die. The Costas will not be gentle. They will hurt you in ways your pathetic ex-boyfriend could not even imagine, and they will do it to send me a message." He let go of one of my shoulders, reached past me, and pressed his thumb to the panel. The elevator doors slid open. "There," he said, his voice flat. "It is your choice. Stay and be safe. Go and be dead. I do not care which one you choose, but choose now." I stared at the open elevator, the gateway to the world, to the garage, to the street, to my death. He was right. I knew he was right. I was trapped, not just by him, but by the whole ugly world I had fallen into. My fight evaporated, leaving me empty and cold. The sobs died in my throat. I turned away from the elevator, my shoulders slumping. The doors slid shut behind me. The choice was made. "Good," he said, his voice void of any emotion. He turned and walked away from me. "Down the hall. Last door on the left. It is a guest room. There are clothes in the closet. They will fit. Shower, eat, sleep." He did not look back. He just walked into a room on the other side of the penthouse and shut the door, leaving me alone in the vast, silent living room, a prisoner in a glass tower. I stood there for a long time before I finally picked up my duffel bag and did as I was told. The guest room was bigger than my entire apartment. The bed was a king, piled with white pillows. The bathroom was all gray stone and glass. There was a walk-in closet, and as he had said, it was filled with clothes, jeans, sweaters, t-shirts, even underwear. All new, all with tags, all in my size. The casual display of wealth, the foresight, the fact that he had a guest room stocked and ready for someone like me was deeply unsettling. How many other complications had stayed here? I showered, scrubbing the motel and the fear and the smell of Dean off my skin until it was raw. I dressed in soft, new clothes. I felt like a doll, being cleaned up and put in a display case. When I came out, the apartment was silent. Luca was in his office. He had not slept. The adrenaline of the confrontation in the motel, combined with the girl's terror, had him wired. He sat at his desk. The skyline of his city spread out before him, but he was not seeing it. He was seeing a different girl, 15 years ago. Chiara, his sister. She was 18. She was bright, loud, and she thought he was a hero. He was 22, just finding his footing, just beginning to understand the weight of the Moretti name. He had rivals, men who did not follow the old rules. The call had come at 3 a.m, a taunt, a message. They had found her coming home from a movie, a cartel soldier, a punk just like Dean Maddox, trying to make a name for himself. Luca had found her in an alley. What they had done to her. His hand clenched on his desk. He had hunted the man down. He had taken 3 days to make him pay for what he had done, and in those 3 days, the last piece of Luca's youth had turned to iron. He had despised men like that ever since, men who used their fists on women, who found strength in terrorizing the weak. When he had kicked in that motel door, he had expected to find a rival soldier, a thief. He had not expected to find her, terrified, bruised, and so utterly broken. She was not Chiara. But the same animal had put that look in her eyes, the same kind of man. And for Luca Moretti, that was a debt that would always be paid in blood. Dean Maddox was a dead man. He just did not know it yet. I must have fallen asleep, because when I woke, the city lights were glittering outside the window. The apartment was dark, except for a soft glow from the kitchen. My stomach growled, a painful, hollow ache. I had not eaten I could not even remember. I crept out of the room, my bare feet silent on the cold hardwood floor. Luca was in the kitchen, standing by the island. He had changed out of his black shirt and was now in a simple gray t-shirt that stretched across his broad chest. He was not cooking. He was just placing 2 plates on the counter, next to 2 large, white takeout boxes. He looked up as I approached, his expression as unreadable as ever. "Eat," he said. He slid a plate and a box toward me. I opened it. It was pasta. Simple. With just tomato sauce and cheese. My hands were shaking. I sat on one of the high stools at the island, and he sat opposite me. We ate in silence. I had never been so hungry, but I could barely force the food down. My hands trembled so much that I kept dropping the fork. It clattered loudly against the ceramic plate. I'm sorry, I mumbled, mortified. Luca stopped eating. He looked at my hands. He did not say anything. He just reached across the island, picked up my glass of water and pushed it closer to me. "Drink," he said. His voice was not unkind. I did. The cold water helped. "You're safe here, Nora," he said quietly, not looking at me, but at the city outside. That's what he used to say. I whispered, staring down at my plate. Dean. He said he would keep me safe, that the world was ugly, and I needed him. That's how it started. I do not know why I said it. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the first real food. Maybe it was the strange, sterile safety of this glass cage, but the words just started coming out. I don't have anyone. My mom left when I was 6, just gone. I was a ward of the state. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Foster care. It's just a long series of gray houses and people who don't look at you. You learn to be quiet. You learn to be invisible. You learn not to want anything. I picked up my fork again, but I was not eating. I was just pushing the pasta around. When I aged out, I had nothing. $100 and a bus ticket. I got the job at the diner. I got the apartment. And then I met Dean. He was so charming. He saw me. He actually saw me. He brought me flowers. He told me I was beautiful. No one had ever told me that. I looked up, and Luca was watching me. His gaze was steady, intense. He was not judging. He was not pitying. He was just listening. And then it changed, I said, my voice dropping. It was slow, a criticism about my clothes, a complaint about me working late, a playful grab that was too hard. Then he hit me, and he cried after. He said he was so sorry, that he loved me so much. I believed him. I kept believing him, until yesterday. I was packing. I was finally going to leave, and he found the bag. I touched my arm, the bruise pulsing under his t-shirt. "You are nothing like him," Luca said. His voice was so low I barely heard it. "How do I know that?" I shot back, my sudden anger surprising me. "Because your cage is bigger? Because your clothes are more expensive? You kicked in my door. You took me from my life. You've locked me in here. What do you want from me, Luca? What's the price for this protection?" I was standing now, my hands braced on the counter. I was emotional, raw, and half terrified, half furious. Luca stood up, too. He was a mountain of silent shadow. He walked around the island until he was standing directly in front of me. I had to crane my neck to look up at him. He was so close I could feel the heat of his body, smell the faint, clean scent of soap. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice breaking. He did not answer. He just looked at me, his dark eyes searching my face as if he was trying to solve a puzzle. I do not know what came over me. It was fear. It was defiance. It was a desperate, stupid need to feel something other than terror, to have some control, to push him, to see if he was just like Dean, to get the inevitable over with. I reached up, grabbed the front of his t-shirt in both my fists, and pulled his head down to mine. I kissed him. It was a clumsy, desperate collision. My lips smashed against his. It was all teeth and panic. For one long, agonizing second, he was completely still. He was rigid, unmoving, like kissing a marble statue. I was about to pull away, flooded with shame, when his hand came up. It was not a gentle hand, his fingers tangled in my hair, cupping the back of my head, holding me in place. His other hand clamped down on my waist, yanking me off balance and flush against his body. Then he kissed me back. It was not a kiss. It was a consumption. It was nothing like my frantic, fearful attack. It was slow, deep, and utterly confident. It was overwhelming. His mouth moved over mine, taking control, and a jolt of pure, undiluted electricity shot straight through me, coiling low in my stomach. It was terrifying. It was the most alive I had ever felt. My hands unclenched from his shirt, moving up to grip his shoulders. He had solid muscles. He deepened the kiss, and my head fell back, my entire body melting against him. He shifted, his hand on my waist tightening, and his lips left my mouth, trailing a hot, open-mouthed path along my jaw. He moved to my neck, and I gasped, my fingers digging into his shoulders. This was happening. It was happening too fast. This was how it started. The control, the possession, the feeling of being owned. Panic, cold and sharp, cut through the haze. "No," I gasped. "Stop, please." I shoved at his chest. He released me instantly. It was so immediate, so total, that I staggered back, nearly falling. He did not even breathe heavily. He just took one step back, putting space between us, and watched me. His eyes were burning, dark and intense, but his hands were at his sides. I wrapped my arms around myself, my body trembling violently. I can't," I stammered, tears of shame and fear welling in my eyes. "I'm sorry. I can't." I waited for him to yell, to grab me, to call me a tease, to finish what I had started. He just stood there. He waited until my breathing started to slow, until the only sound was my own quiet, hiccuping sobs. Then he spoke, and his voice was low, a little rough, but perfectly steady. "I'll never take what you're not ready to give." I stared at him, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. He was not Dean. He was not angry. He was not demanding. He was just watching me. He had given me the power, and I had no idea what to do with it. He turned, walked to the sink, and rinsed his plate as if nothing had happened, as if I had not just thrown myself at him and then recoiled in terror. "Get some sleep, Nora," he said, his back to me. "You're safe here. From me. From everyone." I just stood there, shaking, watching the man who had become my captor, my protector, and something else entirely, something I had no name for. The morning light in the penthouse was cold and blue. I woke up on the giant, comfortable bed, but I had not slept well. My entire body was humming with the memory of the night before, the kiss, the way he had taken control, the way he had given it back. I found him in the living room, standing by the wall of glass, a phone to his ear. He was already dressed in another perfect suit, this one a dark charcoal gray. He was the boss again, the man from the kitchen, the one with the burning eyes and the rough t-shirt, was gone. He was speaking in that low, rapid Italian. He listened for a long time, his body perfectly still, before speaking a single, sharp word and hanging up. He turned to me. His face was a mask of cold stone. "Good morning," I said, my voice small. He just nodded. "Renzo was just here. He has news." My stomach immediately filled with ice. "News? About Dean?" "He is alive," Lucas said, his voice flat. "And he is stupid. He is in Camden Hill, in the underground, asking questions." "Asking questions?" "He's asking about you. He's trying to find you." I had thought I was prepared. I had thought, locked up here in this glass tower. that I was safe. But the words, "He is trying to find you," they were a key, unlocking the cage of terror I kept locked deep inside me. "Oh," I said. I tried to sound calm. I tried to be the person who had kissed this man, this powerful man. "Well, I'm fine. I'm safe here, right? He can't find me here." "Nora?" "I'm fine," I insisted, my voice rising, becoming thin. "He's just a thug. He's just Dean." But my hands were shaking. I clenched them into fists, my nails digging into my palms. The room suddenly felt too bright, the glass walls too wide. I could not seem to get enough air. He's not. "Breathe. Nora," Luca's voice was sharp. "I can't," I gasped. The floor was tilting, the skyline was spinning. I was falling. I was back in the apartment. He was yelling. The glass was shattering. I can't. I was hyperventilating, my vision tunneling to a single black point. I was going to pass out. I was going to die. Suddenly, he was there. He did not ask. He did not warn. He grabbed my arms, his grip like steel, and he hauled me against his chest, hard. One of his arms wrapped around my back, crushing me to him. His other hand came up and cupped the back of my head, forcing my face into the crook of his neck. "Stop," he commanded. It was not a request. "You are not there. You are here. Breathe with me, now." He took a long, slow, deliberate breath. I was pressed so tightly against him I could feel his chest expand, feel the solid, steady thump of his heart against my cheek. "Breathe," he ordered again. I tried. My breath came out as a hitched, terrified sob. Again, he did not loosen his grip. He was an anchor, holding me in the center of the hurricane that was my own mind. "Breathe in. Hold it now. Let it out, slowly." I did as he said. I focused on the smell of his skin, clean soap and something metallic and male. I focused on the strength of the arm around my back, the solid wall of his chest. "You are here," he said, his voice a low rumble against my ear. "You are in my home. He's not here. He will never touch you again. Do you understand me?" I could only nod, my face still buried in his suit. I was shaking, my entire body trembling with the aftershocks of the panic. He held me. He did not stroke my hair. He did not soothe me with soft words. He just held me. He held me together with the sheer force of his will, grounding me until the world stopped spinning, until my lungs remembered how to work. After a long time, my sobs subsided into shudders. I did not want to move. It was the first time I had been held like this, not for passion, not for control, but for support, as if I were a building that was collapsing and he was the only thing holding me up. Finally, I pulled my head back, my face wet, my body exhausted. "I'm sorry," I whispered, ashamed. He looked down at me, his dark eyes searching my face. He did not release me, but his grip on my head loosened. "Never be sorry for being afraid," he said, his voice quiet. "Be sorry if you let it make you weak." He let me go and stepped back. The cold air of the apartment rushed into the space he had left. "Pack your things," he said, his voice all business again. "What? We're leaving?" "He's asking questions. That means the Costas are listening. This place," he gestured to the glass walls, "is a target. We are leaving." "Leaving? To where? Another cage." His eyes narrowed. "A safe place. A place they will not think to look. Now go. We leave in 10 minutes. He did not give me time to argue. I ran to the guest room, threw the new clothes that were not mine into my old duffel bag, and met him back at the elevator. Renzo was there, holding 2 large black suitcases, Luca's. The drive was silent. We left Camden Hill behind, the city shrinking in the rearview mirror until it was just a smudge of gray on the horizon. We drove for over an hour, the urban sprawl giving way to rolling farmland, then to deep, dense forests. The roads became narrower, winding. I had no idea where we were. I was, again, completely at his mercy. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. the silence stretching my nerves thin. "My family's," he said, staring out the window. "An old estate. It has not been used in years." He was quiet for a moment. "My mother," he said, his voice so low I almost did not hear it. "She loved it. She grew grapes. It was a vineyard once." It was the first truly personal thing he had ever told me. A crack in the marble facade. I did not know what to say, so I just watched him. He looked not sad, but distant, lost in a memory I had no part in. The SUV turned off the main road, onto a gravel path hidden by an overgrown stone gate. We drove for another 10 minutes, the trees so thick they formed a canopy over us, blocking out the sun. And then it opened up. We were on a high ridge, overlooking a valley, and in the center of it was a house. It was not a modern glass box. It was an old, sprawling stone villa, with dark wood beams and a terracotta roof. It was covered in ivy, and surrounded by acres of wild, unkempt grapevines that snaked their way down the hillside. It was beautiful. It looked like something out of a dream. It also looked completely, utterly isolated. Renzo parked by the front, and two men I did not recognize, dressed in dark suits, immediately appeared from the side of the house. They nodded to Luca, their eyes scanning the trees. "The perimeter is secure, boss," one said. Luca nodded. "Good. No one in or out without my word, no phones, no radios, total blackout." He got out and I followed, my duffel bag in my hand. The air here was different. It was clean. It smelled of pine, damp earth, and wild grapes. It was quiet. The only sound was the wind in the trees. Luca unlocked the heavy, carved wooden door, and we stepped inside. The air was cool and still. The house was filled with heavy, dark furniture, all of it covered in white dust cloths, like a house full of ghosts. "It is, quiet," I said. "It is safe," he replied. He pulled a sheet off a large sofa in the main room, sending a cloud of dust into the air. "We will stay here until I have dealt with Dean, and with the Costas." Days began to blur. We were in a bubble, suspended in time. Luca's men were shadows, ghosts at the edge of the property, never seen, never heard. It was just me and him in this big, empty, silent house. We fell into a strange, quiet rhythm. We uncovered furniture. We cleaned the kitchen. I found the pantry was stocked, as if someone had known we were coming. I cooked. Simple meals. Pasta, bread, cheese. Luca ate everything I put in front of him, his expression unchanging. But I caught him watching me when he thought I was not looking. He was different here. The suit was gone, replaced by jeans and simple, dark Henley shirts. He was still quiet, still intense, but the cold, hard edges were softer. He would sit in the library for hours, reading old, leather-bound books. I would sit in the same room, curled up in a large armchair, reading, too. We would not speak for hours, but the silence was no longer an empty, terrifying thing. It was full. It was shared. One afternoon, I fell asleep on the sofa in the sunroom, a book open on my chest. I had not been sleeping well, still haunted by the panic attack, by the thought of Dean hunting me. But here, with the sun on my face and the sound of the wind, I had drifted off. I woke slowly, feeling warm. I was not alone. Luca was there, and he was kneeling on the floor beside the sofa. He was not touching me. He was just watching me sleep. My breath caught. His expression, it was one I had never seen before. It was not cold. It was not assessing. It was soft. There was a deep, quiet sadness in his eyes, a conflict that made my heart ache. He must have seen my eyelids flutter, because he straightened up, but before he did, his hand moved, as if of its own accord. His knuckles brushed my cheek, his fingers gently, so gently, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was light as a whisper, but it burned a brand on my skin. I pretended to still be asleep, my heart hammering. He watched me for another long second. Then he stood and walked silently out of the room. I lay there for a long time, my skin tingling, my mind reeling. Who was this man? The killer who kicked in my door? The guardian who held me through a panic attack? Or this gentle, wounded man who watched me sleep? He was conflicted. I could feel it. He was pulling me into his world, a world of violence and death, and he knew it. He knew that by protecting me, he was also damning me. And I knew, in that moment, that I did not care. I was falling for him. I was falling for the monster, the guardian, the man. I was falling for Luca. Dean's world had shrunk to a single, damp, concrete room that smelled of rust and fear. He was tied to a metal chair. His face was a mess of blood and swelling. His nose was broken. He was pretty sure a few of his ribs were, too. A man in a cheap suit stood in front of him, smoking a cigarette, letting the ash fall on Dean's lap. "One last time," and the man said, his voice bored. "The girl, Nora, where is she?" "I told you. I don't know," Dean sobbed. "She ran. I don't know where she went. I was looking for her." "You were looking for her," the man said, taking a slow drag. "But Luca Moretti found her first. He has our tracker. He has our product. And he has your girl. Which means she knows something." "She knows nothing," Dean screamed. "She's stupid. She's a waitress. She doesn't know anything about anything." "She must know something," I and the man mused. "Or maybe you know something, Dean. Maybe you and your girl set us up. Maybe you are working for Moretti." "No, I swear on my life." The man laughed, a short, ugly sound. He put the cigarette out on the back of Dean's hand. Dean screamed. It was a high, thin, animal sound. "We know Moretti has her," the man said. "He took her from that motel. We know he took her to his penthouse. And now they are both gone. Where?" "I don't know." The man sighed. "This is boring." He nodded to a large, silent man in the corner. The man stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "Please," Dean cried, straining against the ropes. "Please, wait. I think I know. I don't know, but I heard his family has an old place up north, an old vineyard. He takes people there when he wants them to disappear. That's what I heard." The man in the suit paused. He looked at Dean, his eyes sharp. "A vineyard? How convenient. And where is this vineyard?" "I don't know the exact address," Dean babbled, "but it's north of Camden Hill, in the woods. That's all I know, I swear." The man watched him, his head tilted. He took out another cigarette. "You know," he said, lighting it, "for your sake. I hope you were telling the truth, because if we go up there and we find nothing, we will come back for you, and we will be very, very unhappy." Dean sobbed in relief. "It's true, I swear it's true. Just let me go, please." The man smiled. "We will. We'll let you go." He nodded to the silent man. Dean closed his eyes. "Thank you, thanks." He never finished the word. That night, I could not sleep. The house was too quiet. My mind was too loud. I was thinking about Luca's hand on my face. I was thinking about the kiss in the penthouse. I was thinking about the fact that I was, for the first time in my life, not afraid. I was wary. I was nervous. But I was not afraid. I got out of bed. I was cold. I pulled on the first thing I found in my duffel bag, which was one of the shirts from the penthouse. One of his shirts. It was a soft, black t-shirt. It was huge on me, falling to my mid-thigh, the sleeves hanging past my elbows. It smelled like him. I padded silently down the dark hallway. A single light was on in the kitchen. He was there, leaning against the counter, a glass of dark liquor in his hand, staring out the black window into the night. He was wearing just a pair of dark sweatpants, his chest and arms bare. He was beautiful. His body was a road map of taut muscle and old, faint scars. He did not seem surprised to see me. He just turned his head, and his eyes, they were dark, and they were hungry. His gaze raked over me, over his shirt on my body, and his knuckles went white on the glass he was holding. "I couldn't sleep," I whispered. He did not say anything. He just watched me. I walked closer, my heart a heavy, slow drumbeat in my chest. I stopped a few feet from him. The air between us was thick, electric. That night, I said, my voice shaking, but I forced myself to continue. In the penthouse, you said you would never take what I wasn't ready to give. He turned his body to face me fully, and I meant it. I know. I took a breath. I was terrified, but not of him. I was terrified of this feeling, of this choice. But it was my choice. For the first time, it was mine. I took the last step. I was standing in front of him, close enough to feel the heat coming off his skin. I reached out a trembling hand and laid it on his bare arm. His muscle jumped under my fingers, but he did not move. I think, I whispered, looking up into his burning, dark eyes. I'm ready. He went completely still. He searched my face, looking for any sign of fear, of hesitation. I held his gaze, letting him see all of it. The fear. Yes, but the want, too. The need. Nora, he said, his voice a low, rough rasp. If I touch you, I cannot be gentle. I'm not asking for gentleness, I said. I'm asking for you. That was all it took. His glass hit the counter with a thunk. His hands were on me, one on my waist, pulling me into him, the other tangled in my hair, tilting my head back. He kissed me. It was not the frantic, desperate collision in the penthouse. It was not a consumption. It was a promise. It was slow and deep and searingly hot. His mouth was firm, confident, and he explored mine with a raw, controlled hunger that made my knees weak. I kissed him back, my hands coming up to grip his shoulders, my fingers digging into his warm skin. It was everything. It was the release of all the tension, all the fear, all the unspoken things that had been hanging between us in this silent, ghostly house. He broke the kiss, his forehead resting against mine, both of us breathing hard. Are you sure? He whispered, his voice thick. 100%. You tell me to stop, I stop. But if you do not, I'm sure. I breathed. Don't stop. He did not kiss me again. He just swung me up into his arms as if I weighed nothing. I wrapped my legs around his waist, my arms around his neck, and he carried me out of the kitchen and down the dark hall to his room. He laid me on the bed, following me down, his body partially covering mine. He supported himself on his elbows, looking down at me, in the moonlight streaming through the window. His face was a mask of shadows and intense desire. You are so beautiful, he rasped, his hand coming up to cup my face. His thumb stroked my cheekbone. So strong. No one had ever called me strong. He kissed me again, and his hands began to move. They were not rushed. They were deliberate, worshipful. His fingers traced the line of my collarbone, the curve of my waist. He slowly pushed the t-shirt up, his calloused palms sliding over the bare skin of my stomach, and I shivered, arching into his touch. He pulled the shirt over my head, and his eyes burned as he looked at me. This was not like Dean. It was not selfish, or fast, or angry. It was slow. It was intimate. It was raw. He made love to me with a controlled, desperate intensity, as if he had been starving and I was the first real thing he had tasted in years. He was not gentle, as he had warned. He was possessive. He was demanding. But he was also careful. Every touch, every kiss, every movement was focused entirely on me. He was watching my face, reading my reactions, and my body responded, opening for him in a way I had never known was possible. It was a slow, deep, perfect connection. It was two broken, lonely people, finding a moment of solace in the dark. It was a quiet promise, a claim. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, my body humming, my mind blissfully blank. I was pressed against his side, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. He held me tightly, one arm draped over my waist, as if he was afraid I might disappear. I finally felt whole. I finally felt safe. I drifted off to sleep, truly, deeply asleep, for the first time in my life. Luca did not sleep. He held her, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the small, fragile weight of her body against his, and he was consumed by a cold, black rage. He had done it. He had crossed the line. She was not a calm-type application anymore. She was not a loose end. He had just made her his, and in his world, that meant he had just painted a target on her back so big that the entire Costa cartel could see it. He had known, from the moment he had touched her, that this would happen. He had felt the conflict, but the sight of her, in his shirt, looking at him with those terrified, wanting eyes. He was, after all, only a man. He had dragged her deeper into his danger, not just by protecting her, but by loving her. He knew, as he held her, that he would burn the entire world to the ground before he let them touch her. The next morning, I woke up alone. The bed was empty, the sheet beside me cold. For a panicked second, I thought I had dreamed it. But then I saw him outside the window. He was walking the perimeter of the property, just at the edge of the trees, a dark, restless figure in the morning mist. He was the boss again. He was on the phone, his voice too low to hear, his gestures sharp. He came back inside an hour later, his face grim. He found me in the kitchen, making coffee. "Good morning," I said, my voice shy. He did not smile. He just nodded, his eyes scanning me, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. He walked over, and for a second I thought he would kiss me, but he just put his hand on my arm, his grip firm. "Nora," he said, his voice all business, "we need to talk." Renzo had arrived while I was in the shower. I could hear their low, urgent voices from the library. When Luca called me in, my heart was pounding. Renzo stood by the fireplace, looking grim. Luca was standing behind the massive oak desk. "Nora," Luca said, his voice flat, "Renzo has news. The Costas. They know about this place." The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. "What? How?" "It does not matter," Luca cut in. "They know. They are planning something, an attack, to retrieve what they think you stole." "Me?" I said, my voice squeaking. "They think I stole from them?" "They think you were in on it," Renzo said, his voice gravelly. "They think you are Moretti's woman. That makes you a prize." "We are no longer safe here," Luca said. He was watching me, his eyes hard. "I am moving you tonight, but until then, this house is a fortress, but no fortress is perfect." He opened a drawer in the desk and took something out. He placed it on the polished wood between us. It was a gun, black, heavy, and terrifying. I recoiled as if it were a snake. "No, Luca, no, I can't, I've never—" "You will," he said. His voice was not harsh, but it was absolute. "I will protect you with my life. My men will protect you. But I am not God. I cannot be in every room at once. You are done being a victim, Nora. You are done running. You will learn to fight for yourself. Starting now." He picked it up and held it out to me. "Handle first." I'm shaky," I whispered, my hands trembling. "You are determined," he corrected me. "Take it." My hand was shaking so badly I could barely close my fingers around the grip. It was heavy, so heavy. It was cold, and it felt like death. "I'm scared," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. "Good," Luca said, his voice softening just a fraction. He came around the desk and stood beside me. His hand covered mine, steadying it. "Fear keeps you alive. Now listen to me. This is safety. This is the slide. This is how you aim." His body was pressed against my back, his arm around me, guiding my hands. He smelled of the cold morning air, of soap, and of gunpowder. I was shaking. I was crying. But I was listening. I was holding the gun. And a cold, hard spark of determination was growing in my chest. I was done running. I would not be a victim. I would fight for myself and for him. The quiet of the house was the first warning. We had spent the evening in the library, the fireplace crackling. A comfortable silence settled between us. But as the fire died to embers, the silence of the house changed. It was no longer peaceful. It became an absence, a heavy, listening void. I saw Luca's head lift. His body went from relaxed to rigid in a single, silent motion. He was a predator that had scented a rival. "What is it?" I whispered. He did not answer. He put one finger to his lips, stood, and moved to the window, sliding into the shadow of the heavy curtain. He looked out into the blackness for a long, still minute. "Nora," he said, his voice a low, cold rumble, "get the gun I gave you." My blood turned to ice. "Luca." "Now, go to your room. Get it." I ran, my bare feet slapping on the cold wood floors. The gun was in the nightstand drawer, just as he had told me to keep it. It was heavy, so much heavier than I remembered. I grabbed it, my hand shaking so violently I almost dropped it. When I returned to the library, he was gone. I heard a faint thud from the front of the house. Then the world exploded. It was not a loud explosion, but a sickening, pressurized, followed by the sound of shattering glass, a flashbang. Even from the back of the house, the concussion rattled my teeth. A split second later, the gunfire started. Not loud, roaring shots, but a series of quick, suppressed pop-pop-pop sounds, like a deadly, metallic woodpecker. They were in the house. "Nora!" Luca's voice was a roar, not from the library, but from the main hall. "Cellar! Now!" I did not think so. I just obeyed. I ran to the kitchen, wrenched open the heavy wooden door that led to the old wine cellar, and scrambled down the stone steps, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I fumbled for the light switch, but it was dead. They had cut the power. I was plunged into a cold, damp blackness that smelled of earth and old, spilled wine. I sank to the bottom step, my back against the rough stone, and I clutched the gun in my white-knuckled hands. I remembered his words, "Fear keeps you alive. Now listen to me." I fumbled in the dark for safety, my thumb finding the small lever. I clicked it off. The sound was deafeningly loud in the small space. Above me, the house was a war zone. I heard muffled shouts, the heavy thump of bodies hitting the floor, the splintering of wood, more pops from the silenced pistols. It was a clean, quiet, terrifyingly efficient assault. I sat there, paralyzed, for what felt like an eternity. I was a rat in a trap, listening to the cats slaughter the family above. Then I heard a new sound, a grunt, of pain. It was Luca. The sound cut through my terror like a hot knife. He was hurt. I was done running. I was done hiding. I stood up, my legs shaking, and raised the gun, holding it in both hands just as he had taught me. I crept up the stone steps, my breath held tight in my chest. I pushed the door open a crack. The kitchen was dark, lit only by the faint moonlight coming through the windows. It was empty. The fighting had moved to the front of the house, toward the main hall and the library. I slipped out of the cellar and crept along the wall. Smoke hung in the air, stinging my eyes. The smell of gunpowder was thick. I passed one of Luca's men, slumped against the wall, his eyes open and sightless. I swallowed a scream, my hand flying to my mouth. I peered around the corner into the main hall. It was a nightmare. 2 more bodies, both men I did not recognize, lay twisted on the floor. The house was a wreck, the furniture overturned, the ghost-like dust cloth stained dark. I heard a thud from the library, a choked-off cry. I ran to the library doorway, my heart in my throat. Luca was there, and he was not on his feet. He was on one knee. His left arm clutched tight to his side. Blood, black in the moonlight, was gushing between his fingers. He had taken down the 2 attackers. Their bodies were near the desk, but he was hurt. Badly. His gun, his big black handgun, was on the polished wooden floor, about 3 feet away from him, kicked away in the struggle. And he was not alone. A third man, one I had not seen, was walking slowly out from behind the heavy velvet curtains. He was dressed in black, a pistol in his hand, aimed not at me, but at Luca. He had not seen me. "It is over, Moretti," the man said, his voice laced with a smug, victorious smile. He took another step toward Luca, raising his pistol to aim at his head. Luca saw him. He lunged for his gun on the floor, his hand outstretched, but his injured side made him slow, his lunge agonizing. He was not going to make it. I did not have time to aim. I did not have time to think. I just acted. I was too far away. My own gun felt clumsy in my hand. I did the only thing I could. I ran. "No!" I screamed. The man turned, his eyes wide with surprise. He had not expected me. That second of hesitation was all I needed. I did not stop. I ran at him, and just as I reached the slick, polished floor of the library, I dove. I threw myself forward, sliding on the hardwood, my hands outstretched. My fingers closed around the cold, heavy grip of Luca's gun, the one he had been reaching for. I rolled onto my back, bringing the weapon up with both hands, just as the attacker turned his gun from Luca to me. I did not even aim. I just pulled the trigger. The sound was not a pop. It was a boom. The roar of the unsuppressed weapon was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It filled the room, the house, the world. The gun bucked in my hands, slamming my wrists back. The man stood frozen for a second, a look of pure, stupid shock on his face. A small, dark hole appeared in the center of his chest. He looked down at it, then back up at me. Then he crumpled, collapsing like a puppet with its strings cut. The silence that fell was absolute. It was heavier and more terrible than the noise. I just lay there, on my back, the heavy gun still pointed at the ceiling, my entire body shaking in one long, uncontrollable tremor. "Nora?" Luca's voice was a raw, choked rasp. I rolled over, scrambling to my knees. He was still in the same spot, leaning heavily against the leg of the desk, his face pale as death. "Luca," I breathed. I crawled to him. You're bleeding." He got me," he gasped, his hand pressed tight to his side. "A knife in the fight. We have to stop the bleeding," I stammered, my mind racing. He grabbed my arm. His grip was weak, but his eyes were pure steel. No time. They are not alone. There are more, outside. I heard them. We have to go. Now." He used the desk to haul himself to his feet, a low groan of agony tearing from his throat. He was unsteady, swaying. "The woods," he said, breathing hard. "Go out the back, through the kitchen." He grabbed his gun from my hand, his knuckles brushing mine. His skin was cold. He shoved the gun into the waistband of his pants and then grabbed my hand. He pulled me. We ran. We stumbled through the ruined hall, back into the kitchen. He did not slow down. He kicked open the back door, and we were out, in the cold, clean night air. "This way," he gasped, pulling me toward the overgrown, wild edge of the vineyard. We ran, or rather, he half ran, half limped, pulling me with him. I was trying to support him, my shoulder tucked under his good arm, but he was so much bigger than me. We crashed through the tangled grapevines, our feet sinking into the soft earth. Behind us, I heard shouts. They had found the bodies. They knew we were gone. "Faster," Luca urged, but his voice was strained. We hit the tree line at a dead run, plunging into the deep, dark woods. We ran, with no path, no light, just the adrenaline of terror and the animal instinct to escape. We tripped over roots. Branches whipped at our faces. I fell, and he hauled me up without breaking stride. He was leaning on me more and more, his breathing a wet, ragged sound in the dark. I do not know how long we ran. It felt like hours. My lungs were on fire. My legs were jelly. Luca was a dead weight against me, but I would not let him fall. I would not let him stop. Finally, just as I thought my heart would burst, I saw it, a shape in the dark, a shadow that was darker than the other trees, a roof line. "There," I gasped. "Luca, there!" It was an old, abandoned barn, its wood gray and rotting. It was listing to one side, but it was standing. We practically fell through the broken hanging door, collapsing onto the dusty floor, which was thick with old, dry straw. We were safe, for now. I lay on my back, gasping for air, my heart hammering. Luca was beside me, curled on his side, his breathing shallow, his hand still clamped to his wound. The adrenaline began to fade, and the cold, sharp reality set in. "Luca," I said, pushing myself up, "your side, I have to look." "It is nothing," he grunted, but his voice was weak. "Do not lie to me," I snapped, the words surprising me with their force. I crawled to him. The faint moonlight streamed in through the broken slats in the barn wall, just enough to see. His hand was slick with blood. His entire left side, from his ribs to his hip, was soaked. "My shirt," I said, my hands already fumbling with the buttons of my own shirt. We need pressure." "Nora, wait!" "No." I ripped the shirt off and bunched it into a thick pad. I gently, so gently, pushed his hand aside. He hissed in pain. It was not a graze. It was a deep, clean slice, at least 5 inches long. It was still bleeding. A lot. "Okay," I said, my voice shaking. "Okay, I can fix this. I can fix this." "Nora?" "I worked," I babbled, my hands trembling as I pressed the wad of my shirt against the wound. He cried out, a sharp, choked sound. "I worked at the diner. People got cut. I saw. I need to stitch it. It's too deep." "Stitch it," he rasped, a faint, pained laugh in his voice. "With what?" I looked around frantically. It was a barn. Straw, dust, old tools. Then I saw it, in the corner. A rusty metal cabinet, the kind a farmer would keep, a first aid kit. I scrambled over to it. The latch was rusted shut. I smashed it with a rock until it broke open. Inside, covered in dust and cobwebs, was a miracle. A small tin box. It held a bottle of antiseptic, some gauze, and a curved suture needle with a spool of dark thread. It was ancient, but it was everything. I ran back to him. "This is gonna hurt," I whispered, my hands shaking so hard I could barely open the antiseptic. He was watching me. His face was pale, his skin clammy with sweat, but his eyes were clear, and they were fixed on me with an intensity that had nothing to do with pain. It was admiration. It was awesome. "I know," he said. I cleaned the wound as best I could. He did not flinch, but his entire body went rigid. I threaded the needle, my fingers clumsy. "Hold still," I whispered. I took a breath. I put the needle to his skin, and I pushed it through. He grunted, his body jolting, but he did not move. I pulled the thread tight, then I did it again and again. My hands were covered in his blood. My body was trembling from head to toe. Tears were streaming down my face, but I did not stop. I just stitched. 1, 2, 3, 10, 12 messy, uneven, desperate stitches, until the bleeding slowed, until the raw, open wound was closed. When I was done, I tied it off and collapsed back. My body spent. I had nothing left. He was quiet, his eyes closed, his breathing still ragged. "Luca," I whispered, panicked. "Luca." His eyes opened. He looked at me. "You saved my life," he whispered. I... The reality of the night hit me. The gun, the man, the blood. I killed him. Luca. I shot him. A sob tore itself from my chest. I had taken a life. He reached out, his good arm coming around me, and he pulled me down. I collapsed against his chest, my face buried in his neck. He was warm. He was alive. "Shh," he rasped. "You did not murder. You survived. You defended. You saved us." He held me, his hand stroking my hair, and I just cried, the sobs racking my entire body. I cried for the man I had killed, for the man I had saved, and for the woman I had been who was gone forever. We lay there, curled together in the straw, exhausted, bleeding, and cold. The adrenaline was gone, leaving a deep, aching cold in its place. I was shivering, dressed only in my bra and jeans. Luca shifted, groaning in pain, and pulled me tighter against him. "You are cold," he mumbled, his voice thick. "I'm fine. Come here." He wrapped his legs around mine, his body cocooning me, sharing his warmth. We were a tangle of limbs, pressed together in the dusty hay. I was so tired, he was so warm, but I was so scared. He He'll find us, I whispered into his chest. Dean, the Costas. No, Lucas said. Renzo will find us. The woods. They are ours. They are hitting the panic buttons. He will come. I tilted my head back to look at him. In the faint light, his face was all shadows and angles. His eyes dark, unreadable pools. You are, he started, his voice rough. He put his hand on my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin. You are incredible. And he kissed me. It was not the passionate, claiming kiss from the vineyard. It was not the desperate, testing kiss from the penthouse. This was something else entirely. It was raw. It was desperate. It was a kiss that said, we are alive. His mouth was chapped and tasted of blood and fear, and it was the most real thing I had ever felt. I kissed him back, my hands coming up to frame his face, my fingers tangling in his hair. I was clinging to him, to the life in him, to the man who had seen the absolute worst of me and called me strong. It was a frantic, desperate collision. It was a promise made in the dark, with no words. It was two people who had been to the edge of death and pulled each other back. He kissed my jaw, my neck, his lips hot against my cold skin. Nora, he breathed, his voice breaking. It was not about passion. It was about possession. It was about life. It was about sealing the bond that had just been forged in gunpowder and blood. It was desperate, and it was necessary. A silent, unspoken vow in the straw that we belonged to each other. We were, both of us, survivors. And we were, in this, together. We collapsed, spent, our bodies still wrapped tightly around each other, and finally slept. The sound of a truck engine woke me. I bolted upright, my heart slamming against my ribs. Luca was awake instantly, his hand on his gun, pulling me behind him. He was in agony, but he was ready. The barn door creaked open, a bright shaft of gray dawn light cutting through the darkness. Boss? Renzo. I almost cried in relief. Luca sagged, the tension leaving his body. Here, he called out, his voice weak. Renzo was at our side in a second, his face grim, taking in the scene, the blood, my lack of a shirt, Luca's pale face. He did not ask. The house is gone, boss, Renzo said, his voice flat, as he helped Luca to his feet. We lost 4 men, but we took out 6 of theirs. It was a cleanup crew. Cost us. They were not expecting a fight. He wrapped Luca's good arm over his shoulder, and I hurried to Luca's other side, taking his weight. We half carried him to the SUV. The ride back to Camden Hill was silent. We were not going to the penthouse. Renzo took us to a new place, a nondescript apartment building in a working-class neighborhood. But the apartment inside was a fortress. Steel doors, bulletproof windows. Renzo, who apparently knew how to do everything, cleaned and properly stitched Luca's wound while I stood by, shaking, now that the crisis was over. He's alive, Renzo said, his voice hard. Dean. Luca, sitting on the sofa, his side freshly bandaged, did not look up. Tell me. He's in Costa custody. They tortured him. He gave up the vineyard. They were keeping him in the basement of a nightclub they own. The El Nido. They were going to kill him. Slowly. Luca's eyes were chips of ice. Good. They kept him alive for us. He looked at Renzo. We're going to take him. We are going to use him as the messenger, a very public one. It's a fortress. Luca, El Nido is their stronghold. I do not care. Luca looked at me, his gaze softening for just a fraction. Nora, you will stay here. I will post 2 men outside the door. You will not. No. The word was out before I could think. It was quiet, but it was as hard as steel. Both men turned to look at me. What did you say? Luca asked, his voice low. I said no. I stepped forward, wrapping my arms around myself. I was wearing one of Luca's t-shirts that Renzo had brought. I am done running. I am done hiding in cellars. Last night, I was not a victim. I fought back. I am not the girl you found in that motel anymore. He tried to kill me. They tried to kill us. I am a part of this now. Whether you like it or not, you do not get to hide me in a box and hope I stay safe. I want I want to be part of the fight." Renzo looked at Luca, surprised. Luca stared at me for a long, long time. I saw the battle in his eyes, the man who wanted to wrap me in steel and hide me from the world, and the boss, who was looking at me, really looking at me, and seeing a new weapon. A slow, cold smile touched his lips. It did not reach his eyes. "You are right," he said, his voice soft. "You are not a victim. But this is not a game. Nora, it is more dangerous than anything you have faced." "I don't care." He nodded, a single, sharp gesture. "Good, because we need to get to Dean. A full frontal assault is suicide. They would expect it, but they would never expect a negotiation. And they would never expect you." I straightened my shoulders. "What do you want me to do?" "They think you are my woman," Luca said, his voice turning to ice. "They think you are my weakness. We are going to show them. You are my strength. You are going to be the bait." The club was called the Onyx. It was Luca's. From the outside, it was nothing, just a black door in a brick alley. But inside, it was a cavern of dark wood, red velvet, and old money. The air was thick with expensive cigar smoke and the low thrum of jazz. It was, I realized, the exact opposite of the El Nido, the Costa-owned club where Dean had been rotting. This place was not about cheap thrills. It was about power. We had spent the last 2 days planning, or rather, Luca and Renzo had planned, and I had listened. Luca's men had moved like ghosts. They had plucked Dean from the El Nido's basement, snatching him from under the Costa's noses. It was an act of profound disrespect, a declaration of contempt. And now, Dean was here, waiting. I stood outside the black door, Renzo at my side. Luca was across the street in the shadows, waiting. "He's in the back booth," Renzo said, his voice a low rumble. "He's terrified. He thinks this is his execution." "Good," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Nora?" Renzo's hard eyes met mine. "The club is full. Every person in there works for us. They are patrons, but they are soldiers. You are completely safe. But he does not know that, to him, it is a public room. He will be desperate. Do not let him touch you." "He will never touch me again," I said. My hands were trembling. I was not the girl from the motel. I was not the woman from the vineyard. I was something new. I was a weapon. Luca had taught me how to hold a gun. Now, he was teaching me how to be one. "I'm ready," I said. Renzo nodded. He opened the black door. The wall of sound and smoke hit me. A man at the door, built like a mountain, just nodded and stepped aside. I walked in alone. My heels clicked on the polished oak floor. I had spent an hour getting ready. Luca had provided the clothes. It was not a dress. It was armor. Black, high-waisted trousers, a dark silk blouse, and high heels that made me feel tall, dangerous. My hair was pulled back in a severe, tight bun. I wore makeup, not to hide, but to emphasize. Red lipstick, dark eyes. I felt the gaze of every person in the room land on me. The jazz quartet in the corner did not miss a beat. The quiet, expensive conversations continued, but the energy in the room had shifted. They all knew who I was. I was the girl Luca Moretti had gone to war for. I saw him. He was in the farthest booth, the one shrouded in shadows. He was not alone. 2 of Luca's men sat with him, impassive, staring straight ahead, but boxing him in. Dean looked small. He was not the monster from my nightmares. He was not the enraged animal who had slammed me against a wall. He was a pathetic, broken thing. His face was a mess of yellow and purple bruises from his time with the Costas. His nose was crooked. He was wearing a dirty, torn shirt. He was shaking, his eyes wide and darting around the room. A cornered rat who knew the trap was about to spring. I walked toward him. My steps were steady. I felt a cold, hard calm settle over me. This was not a confrontation. This was a conclusion. He saw me. His eyes widened, and for a second a flicker of hope crossed his face. He thought I was here to save him. I stopped at the edge of the table. I did not sit. I stood, looming over him. "Nora!" he breathed. It was a wet, desperate sound. Nora, baby, oh God, you're here. You gotta help me. He tried to stand, to reach for me, but one of Luca's men put a heavy hand on his shoulder, slamming him back down into the velvet seat. Help you? I said. My voice was not my own. It was cold, clear, and cut through the sound of the club. Please, he whimpered. Tears were rolling down his bruised cheeks, mixing with the grime. You don't understand. These men, they're animals. The Costas. What they did to me. And now him, Moretti. He's going to kill me. Nora, you gotta tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I'll do anything. I'll give you anything. I love you. The word love hung in the air. It was a final, desperate, pathetic lie. You love me. I repeated. It was not a question. Is that what you told yourself when you hit me? Dean? When you shattered that picture of my mother? When you left me covered in bruises because I packed a bag? That wasn't me, he cried, his voice rising, hysterical. You know I get angry. I didn't mean it. I was under so much pressure. The Costas, they were squeezing me. The Costas, I said, my voice like ice. Tell me about them. They're monsters, he sobbed. I just ran some product for them. I got in a little debt. That's all. I was trying to make something for us. For our future. Our future, I said, by giving me that box? His face went pale. The box. I didn't know what it was, I swear. They gave it to me. They said to hold it. It was a test. I panicked. I gave it to you. I thought you'd just put it in your purse. I didn't know you were going to run. You ruined everything, Nora. You ruined us. He lunged forward again, his face contorted in that old, familiar rage. You stupid! I did not flinch. I did not even blink. I just looked at him, and the rage died in his throat. He saw me. He saw that I was not the girl from the apartment. I was not afraid of him, and that, more than anything, broke him. He slumped back, his bravado gone. When you ran, they thought I set them up, he whispered. They thought I was working with Moretti. They took me. They hurt me. They asked me where you were. And what did you tell them, Dean? I asked, my voice soft. Nothing, I swear. I told them nothing. You are lying, I said. He looked at my face, at the cold, unforgiving lack of emotion. He knew the game was over. I told them about the vineyard, he confessed, his voice cracking. The Moretti place. I'd heard stories. I had to tell them something. They were going to kill me. So you sent them to kill us instead. I said, me and Luca. No, he shrieked. It wasn't like that. I offered them a deal. A deal? I said I could get you back, he whispered, his eyes not meeting mine. I said you were stupid, that you'd come back to me. I said I could sell you to them, for leverage, to get me out, to pay my debt. There it was, the last, final, ugly truth. He would have sold me. He would have handed me over to the men who had tortured him, just to save his own skin. I had thought I would feel rage. I had thought I would want to scream. Instead, I felt nothing, just a cold, vast, empty peace. The last chain had broken. I was free. You're pathetic, I said. I turned to walk away. Nora, wait, he screamed, his voice full of pure animal terror. Please, don't leave me with him. Nora, please. At that moment, the jazz music stopped. It did not fade out. It just stopped, as if a switch had been thrown. The murmur of conversation died, the clinking of glasses, the sound of laughter. Everything. A heavy, absolute silence fell over the club. I turned back. Dean's face had gone slack with a new, more profound terror. He was looking past me, toward the entrance. Luca was there. He was not in shadow. He was standing in the main archway, flanked by Renzo and 4 other men. He was wearing a black suit, a white shirt, no tie. His wounded side was invisible, his posture perfect. He was the king in his own court. He did not look at me. His eyes were fixed, like twin black ice lasers, on Dean. He walked forward. His footsteps were the only sound in the entire packed club. He walked past me, past my table, and stood in front of the booth. He looked down at the man who had beaten me, who had sold me, who had tried to have us both killed. Luca did not say a word. He just looked. Dean dissolved. He was not a man. He was a puddle of fear. He was openly weeping, snot and tears running down his face. "Please," he whimpered. "Mr. Moretti, sir, please, it was a mistake. I'll pay you. You, Luca said, his voice quiet, but it carried through the entire silent room. You put your hands on her. It was not a question. It was a death sentence. "No, she's lying," Dean shrieked. Luca looked at me. One quick glance. "Are you done?" I nodded. "I'm done." Luca looked back at Dean. "You confess," he said, "to working for the Costas, to giving her the tracker, to sending them to my home, to trying to sell her for your own life. You confess to all of it." "Yes," Dean sobbed. "Yes, all of it. I'll confess. Whatever you want, just don't kill me. Please. Don't kill me. Don't kill." Luca watched him for a long, cold second, then he nodded to Renzo. "No," Luca said. "I will not kill you." A pathetic, strangled gasp of relief escaped Dean's lips. "He is worthless," Luca said, his voice projecting for the entire room to hear. "He is a rat. He sold out his woman. He sold out his bosses. He is nothing." Renzo and another man grabbed Dean, hauling him to his feet. He was limp, sobbing, almost fainting in relief. "Take him," Luca commanded. "Tie him to the chair and put him back." Dean's eyes widened. Back where?" Back in the basement of the El Nido," Luca said, his voice flat. "Put a bag over his head, tie him to the chair, and leave him there, for the Costas to find." The blood drained from Dean's face. He understood. This was not a reprieve. This was a fate worse than a bullet, 1,000 times worse. Luca was not just killing him. He was sending a message. He was returning damaged, worthless goods. He was telling the Costas that Dean had confessed, that he was a liability, that he was their trash, and they would be the ones to take it out. "No!" Dean screamed, his voice a raw, primal shriek of terror. "No, please kill me. Just shoot me. Please don't send me back. No, Nora, please. Don't let him, please." He was fighting now, kicking, struggling, but Renzo and the other man were rocks. They dragged him, screaming and begging, through the club and out a back door. The club was still silent. Luca turned to me. He stood in front of me, his dark eyes searching my face. He did not touch me. The jazz quartet slowly, quietly, began to play again. The spell was broken. "It is done," he said, his voice low, "for me alone." "It is done," I repeated. My legs felt weak. The cold, hard strength that had held me up was fading, the adrenaline crashing. He saw it. He put his hand on the small of my back. His touch was warm, solid. It was the only thing holding me up. "Let's go home," he said. We returned to the penthouse. The glass cage, the place I had been so terrified of. Renzo had had it swept, resecured. It was the safest place in the city again. The elevator doors opened into the vast, dark apartment. The city lights glittered below us, a carpet of jewels. Luca locked the elevator. He set his gun harness on the glass table. The silence of the apartment wrapped around me, and in that silence, I finally understood. It was over. Dean was gone. His voice, his hands, his shadow. They were gone from my life. They could never hurt me again. A single, hitched sob escaped my chest, then another. I was not crying from fear. I was not crying from sadness. It was released. A dam I had been holding back for years, a wall of pain and terror and shame. It just broke. I stumbled away from him, my hands covering my mouth, my body shaking. I did not want him to see me like this. Not after the club, not after I had been so strong. I ran to the guest room, my room, and into the bathroom. I turned on the shower, turning the handle all the way to hot, not caring. I needed to wash it off. I needed to wash him off. The memory. The last, final trace. I stepped under the scalding water, still in my silk blouse and trousers. The water plastered the clothes to my skin, but I did not care. I leaned my forehead against the cold tile and I wept. I cried for the years I had lost. I cried for the bruises I had hidden. I cried for the girl who had been too scared to leave, and I cried in pure, unadulterated relief that she was finally gone. I was so lost in the sound of the water and my own sobs that I did not hear the bathroom door open. I just felt a presence. I turned, my breath catching. Luca was standing there, and he was just watching me. His dark suit jacket gone, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were full of a deep, aching understanding. I tried to cover myself, to hide my face. I'm sorry, I choked out. Don't look at me. I'm a mess. He did not say anything. He just walked forward. He did not take off his shoes. He did not take off his shirt. He just stepped directly into the shower stall with me. The scalding water hit his shoulders, plastering his shirt to his chest, soaking his hair. He did not even blink. "Luca, what are you doing?" I stammered. Your clothes." "It is just water," he said, his voice a low, rough rumble. And he pulled me into his arms. He just held me. He wrapped his arms around my back, pulling me tight against his chest, and he let me fall apart. I buried my face in his soaked shirt, my hands gripping his arms, and I let go of everything. He held my weight. He held my pain. He stood like a rock in the storm, his chin resting on the top of my head, and he just held me. After a long time, my sobs quieted, my breathing slowed. The only sound was the rush of the water around us. I tilted my head back to look at him. His face was inches from mine. His black hair was slicked back, water dripping from his jaw. He looked not like a mafia boss, not like a killer. He looked like my anchor. "It is over, Nora," he whispered, his thumb stroking my wet cheeks. "He is gone. You are free." I know," I whispered back. "Thank you." "You did this," he said. "You were strong. You faced him." "Only because of you," I said. We just looked at each other, and the air, already thick with steam, became charged with something else. The trust, the bond, the sheer, overwhelming rightness of being held by him. He lowered his head. His kiss was not hungry. It was not possessive. It was tender. It was slow. His lips were wet, warm, and they moved over mine with a careful reverence that made my heart ache. I kissed him back, my hands sliding from his arms up to his neck, my fingers tangling in his wet hair. It was a kiss of healing, a kiss of promise. The water was washing away the blood, the fear, the past. It was just us. He deepened the kiss, his mouth becoming more demanding, but still so tender. His hand slid from my back, around my waist, pulling me even closer, until there was no space between us, just water and steam and this all-consuming connection. He reached behind me and the water shut off. The sudden silence was deafening. He did not let me go. He just looked at me, his eyes dark with a new, deep desire. He picked me up. I wrapped my legs around his waist, my arms around his neck, and he carried me, soaking wet, out of the bathroom and into the dark bedroom. He laid me on the cool, clean sheets of the bed. He did not turn on the lights. The city skyline was all the light we needed. He stood over me, pulling his soaked shirt off, tossing it aside. His chest was a landscape of shadow and muscle. His bandage was soaked, but he did not seem to care. He came down over me, and this time, it was not the desperate, frantic coupling in the barn. It was not a collision of survivors. It was slow. It was deliberate. It was perfect. He undressed me with a patience that was almost painful, his hands and mouth tracing every inch of skin he uncovered, as if he were memorizing me. He was worshiping me, and I trusted him. For the first time in my life, I was not afraid. I was not hiding. I was open. I was his. When he finally came inside me, it was a slow, perfect joining, a sigh of relief, a feeling of home. He moved with a raw, controlled power, his eyes locked on mine, and I met his gaze, unafraid. I arched to meet him, my hands gripping his shoulders, my body his. It was a silent promise, a total surrender that was, in itself, the ultimate victory. Afterward, we lay tangled in the damp sheets. I was curled against his side, my head on his chest, my hand splayed over his heart. It was beating, slow and steady, under my palm. "Luca?" I whispered into the darkness. His voice was a sleepy rumble, his hand stroking my hair. I took a breath. The words were terrifying. They were the most honest thing I had ever said. I think I am falling in love with you. His hand stopped moving, his entire body tensed. I pulled back, a flicker of the old fear returning. You don't have to, I wanted you to know. He was quiet for a long second, then his arm tightened around me, pulling me back against him so hard it almost hurt. "Nora," he said, his voice rough, "look at me." I did. In the dim light, I could just make out his face. He looked conflicted. "After everything I have put you through," he said, his voice low, "the motel, the vineyard, the fighting, you do not owe me anything. You do not owe me that." "I know," I said, my voice soft but firm. "This is not gratitude. I am not indebted to you. It is real. I know what it is. I see you. Luca, not the boss, not the killer. You. And I am falling in love with you." He stared at me, his dark eyes searching my face. I saw the war inside him, the man who lived in the darkness, and the man who was, for the first time, seeing a light. He did not say it back. I did not expect him to. Instead, he kissed my forehead, a long, hard, possessive press of his lips. "I am not letting you go," he whispered, his voice a raw, unbreakable vow. "Ever. You are mine." It was not a threat. It was not the words of an abuser. It was his confession. It was the only way he knew how to say it. And it was enough. I smiled, curling into his warmth. Finally safe. The moment of peace lasted for exactly 10 minutes. A sharp, intrusive buzzing sound filled the apartment. It was not a phone. It was the private intercom, the one that went directly to the building's security. Luca was out of the bed in an instant, his body all lethal grace. He grabbed his gun from the floor, where he had left it, and hit the button on the wall. "What?" Renzo's voice was tinny and tight with urgency. "Boss, we have a problem, a big one, the Costas. They just responded to your message. They just issued a public hit to every trigger man in the city, $500,000, on your head and on Nora's." I sat up, my heart stopping. Luca did not even blink. He walked to the window, naked, his gun in his hand, and looked down at the city. They are declaring war, Lucas said, his voice flat. They are, boss. They are not just trying to kill you. They are trying to make a statement. They will not stop. They will send everyone. The apartment is secure, but we cannot stay here forever. Luca finished. He was silent, the wheels turning. They have one main weapons depot in Camden Hill, the one that supplies all their local operations. It is in a warehouse by the river. Boss, that is a suicide run, Renzo said, his voice strained. It is their main stronghold. No, Lucas said, his voice turning to ice. It is their only weakness. We do not wait for them to come to us. We do not hide. We cut off the head of the snake. We end this tonight. The penthouse was not a home. It was a war room. It was 3 hours past midnight, and the vast glass-walled apartment was filled with ghosts. Renzo and a team of 6 other men, all dressed in dark, functional tactical gear, moved with a silent, terrifying efficiency. They were checking weapons, loading magazines, and strapping on body armor. The air was cold, smelling of gun oil and ozone. Lucas stood in the center of it all, a map of the warehouse district spread across his glass table. He was no longer the man who had held me in the shower. He was the boss. He wore black cargo pants, combat boots, and a black Henley that stretched across his shoulders. The fresh white bandage on his side was a stark, angry slash against the dark fabric. He was strapping on his own shoulder holster, his movements fluid, economical. I stood by the kitchen island, my hands wrapped around a cold, untouched cup of coffee. I was wearing jeans, sneakers, and the gun he had given me, heavy in the holster at my hip. Nora, he said, not looking up from the map, Renzo will stay here with you. The elevator is locked down. The stairwell is guarded. You will be safe. No, I said. The men stopped their preparations. The only sound was the click of a magazine being seated. Luca looked up, his eyes hard. This is not a discussion. This is not the club. This is war. You are the target. You will stay here. You are also the target, Luca, I said, my voice shaking, but I held his gaze. You think they will stop if they get you? You think they will just let me go? They will hunt me to the end of the world. My only safety is with you. My only safety is in ending this. She is right, boss, Renzo said quietly from the corner. Luca's head snapped toward him, a flash of anger in his eyes, but Renzo did not flinch. They want her as much as they want you, leaving her here. She's a bird in a cage. They'll just burn the building down. She's safer with us, in the fight. Luca stared at Renzo, then at me. I saw the battle in his eyes, the man who wanted to lock me away, and the general who knew a tactical truth when he heard one. I am not a victim anymore, I said, my voice low and firm. I'm not hiding in a cellar. I'm not waiting to be rescued. I am in this. Let me fight. He was silent for a long, agonizing minute. He looked at my hand, which was resting on the grip of my pistol. I was not trembling. Fine, he said, his voice flat. He pointed to the map. The warehouse has one main entrance and one rear loading dock. We go in the front, the main force. Renzo, you will take Nora. You will cover the back entrance. No one goes in. No one comes out. You are the cork in the bottle. That is your only job. Do you understand? I understand, I said. He nodded, turning back to his men. Let's go. The drive to the river was silent. I was in the back of an armored SUV with Renzo. Luca was in the lead vehicle. The city was asleep, its streets empty, the traffic lights blinking a lonely yellow into the void. My heart was not hammering. It was beating with a slow, heavy, cold rhythm. I was terrified, but I was not afraid. There was a difference. The warehouse was a massive, dark red brick monolith in the industrial district. It sat alone, surrounded by a chain-link fence and pools of inky shadow. We are in position, Renzo whispered into his radio. We crouched behind a stack of rotting pallets. 100 yards from the rear loading dock, the air smelled of rust and the river. I could see Luca and his main team, 5 shadows, melt into the deeper blackness near the front gate. For a long minute, nothing happened. The world was holding its breath. Then, A faint, metallic snap drifted on the wind, a lock being broken. And then, the night erupted. It started with a muffled thud, not a gunshot, but something heavy. A breach. Then came the shouting, in Italian and Spanish. The war had begun. From our position, it was a chaos of noise. The sound of gunfire, sharp and brutal, echoed from inside the brick building. Muzzle flashes lit the high, grimy windows from within, like a deadly, flickering strobe light. It was a hornet's nest, and Luca had just kicked it. "Stay down," Renzo said, his eyes scanning the loading dock. "Our job is here." I crouched lower, my gun in my hand. The weight of it was familiar now. My heart was in my throat, but my hands were steady. I watched the metal roll-up door of the loading dock. More shouts, a new sound, the heavy, rhythmic thump of a different kind of weapon. Smoke began to pour from the ventilation shafts on the roof. They are winning, right?" I whispered. "The boss is in there," Renzo said, as if that explained everything. "He does not lose." The firefight raged for what felt like an eternity. 10 minutes. 20. The sounds were closer now, moving through the cavernous space. Then, the metal roll-up door rattled. It began to rise, scraping loudly, light and smoke spilling out onto the loading dock. "Contacts," Renzo said, his voice dropping. 3 men stumbled out, coughing, one of them clutching his arm. They were not Luca's. They were Costa soldiers, dressed in jeans and T-shirts, carrying pistols. They were running. Renzo did not say a word. He rose from our cover and his weapon fired, a series of quick, suppressed thwips. The 3 men collapsed, falling like sacks of flour onto the concrete. It's over." I breathed, starting to stand. "No," Renzo said, pulling me back down. "That was just the first wave." He was right. The gunfire inside the warehouse was changing, becoming more sporadic, more desperate. It was moving, coming toward us. Another man burst from the smoke-filled doorway. He was not running. He was fighting, firing back into the warehouse. He was one of Luca's. "Cover!" Renzo shouted, and he opened fire, laying down a spray of bullets that gave Luca's man the second he needed. He dove behind a rusted-out forklift. And then I saw him. "Luca." He emerged from the smoke, moving with a lethal, focused grace. He was firing in short, controlled bursts, covering his man's retreat. He was a general, a king, a demon of vengeance in the smoke. He was also exposed. "Luca!" Renzo yelled, but it was too late. From the side, from an angle I could not see until he moved, a new figure appeared, not from the door. From a small, hidden side exit, a single Costa gunman. He had slipped past Renzo in the chaos of the first wave. He was not looking at Renzo. He was not looking at me. He was raising his pistol, taking careful, two-handed aim at Luca's back. Luca was still firing into the warehouse. He had no idea. Time stopped. There was no time for Renzo. There was no time to shout. There was no time for anything. I just acted. The gun was in my hand. I rose from cover. I saw the man. I saw Luca. I saw the line between them. I raised my arm. I did not aim. I did not think. I just knew. I remembered the weight. I remembered the balance. I pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening, so much louder than Renzo's, a clean, sharp crack that echoed off the brick. The Costa gunman jolted, as if struck by lightning. His gun fired, a single wild shot that went straight up into the night sky. He looked down at his chest, a dark stain blossoming. Then he toppled over backward, his eyes wide with a final, terminal surprise. Silence. The firefight inside had stopped. The smoke began to clear. Luca, his gun still raised, slowly turned. He looked at the dead gunman I had just shot. Then he looked across the yard, his eyes finding me in the darkness. I was still standing, my arm outstretched, my gun smoking. My entire body was shaking, but I did not lower my arm. He just stared. I could not read his expression. It was not shock. It was not gratitude. It was something else. awe, recognition, as if he were seeing me, the real me, for the very, very first time. Then the siren started, a faint wail in the distance. Renzo ran out, checking the bodies. "Clear," he called. Luca walked slowly out of the warehouse. His men followed, emerging from the smoke like figures from a bad dream. They were bruised, bleeding, but they were walking. "Boss," one of them said, gesturing to the approaching sirens. "The police!" Luca did not even look. He was still looking at me. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "It is done," he said into the phone. "The nest is clean. Send the sanitation crew." He hung up. The police cars, 4 of them, screeched to a halt at the front gate, but the officers did not storm in. Guns blazing, they got out slowly. A man in a detective's suit, one I did not recognize, walked up to Luca. "Moretti," the detective said, his voice tired. "A real mess." "Just taking out the trash, detective," Luca said, his voice flat. "A rival gas leak. Tragic." The detective looked at the bodies. He looked at the warehouse, which was now beginning to billow blacker smoke. "A gas leak. Right. My men will secure the perimeter. We'll let the fire department handle the leak." "Good," Luca said. He walked past the detective. He did not look back. He walked across the concrete yard, past the bodies, past his men. He did not stop until he was standing in front of me. I was still shaking. The gun felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I finally lowered it to my side. He stood there, just looking at me. His face was smeared with soot. His knuckles were bloody. He looked at the dead man I had shot, then back at me. He did not say thank you. He did not say, "You saved my life." He just reached out and took my left hand, not the hand holding the gun. My other hand. He laced his fingers through mine, his grip firm, possessive, and unbreakable. I looked down at our joined hands, his large, calloused, and stained with the night's work, mine, small, trembling, but no less stained. "It is over, Nora," he said, his voice a low, rough rumble. I looked up at him, the sirens, the shouting, the smoke. It all faded away. There was just him. The man who had kicked in my door, the man I had stitched up in a barn, the man whose life I had just saved. I squeezed his hand. "It is over," I repeated. And in the middle of a smoking, war-torn battlefield, surrounded by death, I felt for the first time in my entire broken life, completely and totally safe. A few days later, I went back to the Royal Inn Motel. The city was quiet. The war was over. The Costas were broken, their leadership either dead in the warehouse or scattered to the wind. Luca had cut off the head of the snake, and the body was already withering. Room 107. The door was new, cheap particle board, but the lock was fixed. I used my own key, the one I had never returned. The room was exactly as I had left it, only cleaner. The motel staff had changed the sheets, but the smell was the same, stale cigarettes, despair. I had a single cardboard box in my hands. I was there for the last of my things. My old, cracked-out sedan was still in the parking lot, a for sale sign on its dashboard. Renzo had handled it. I opened the closet. My old waitress uniform was still hanging there, a ghost of the girl I used to be. I took it off the hanger, folded it, and placed it in the box. A few cheap paperbacks, a framed photo of my mother that I had, miraculously, grabbed on my way out. I was taping the box shut when I felt him. The air in the room changed. It thickened. I did not have to turn around. He was standing in the open doorway, a dark silhouette against the bright, ugly afternoon. He was not in a suit. He was in jeans and a dark shirt, his hands in his pockets. He was just watching me. I stood up slowly and turned to face him. "You came back," I said. It was not a question. He stepped into the room. It shrank around him, the cheap furniture, the peeling wallpaper, all of it looking pathetic in his presence. He looked around, his eyes taking in the place where he had first found me, the place where he had kicked in the door and changed my life. "I told you I would," he said, his voice quiet. He looked at me, at the box in my hands, at the empty closet. He walked over, stopping just in front of me. "To make sure," he said, his voice a low, soft promise. "You'll never sleep scared again." My breath hitched. The last little piece of fear, the one that had been whispering that this was all a dream, that he would leave, that I would end up back here. It just died. "The apartment is ready," I whispered. He took the box from my hands. "I know." He did not take me to the penthouse. He did not take me to one of his safe houses. He had taken me to a new place, an apartment, high up in a clean, new building, with warm, hardwood floors and a view of the city that was not a cold, assessing map, but a beautiful, glittering promise. He had put the lease in my name. "It is yours," he had said, "a place that is only yours. You are never a prisoner, Nora, not even of me." That night, I stood by the window of my new home, looking out at the city lights. The apartment was quiet. It was filled with new furniture, soft, comfortable things that I had picked out. I heard him enter. He had not been there. He had business. He was, and always would be, Luca Moretti, but when he walked in, he shut the door, and the boss was gone. It was just Luca. He came up behind me, sliding his arms around my waist, pulling me back against his solid, warm chest. He rested his chin on my shoulder. We stood there for a long time, just watching the lights. "It is beautiful," I whispered. "It is," he agreed, but he was not looking at the view. He was looking at my reflection in the glass. I turned in his arms, my hands coming up to rest on his chest. I could feel his heart, steady and strong, beneath my palm. I looked up into his dark, intense eyes. One last, lingering doubt. The girl from the motel was hard to kill. Are you really staying?" I whispered, my voice small. "Or is this just for tonight?" He did not answer, and he just looked at me, and his expression, it was a look of such raw, unguarded possession, such deep, profound love, that it stole my breath. It was the answer to every question I had ever had. He lifted a hand, cupping my face, his thumb stroking my cheek. "Always," he whispered. The word was a vow, an oath. It was not a promise for a night. It was a sentence for a lifetime. He pulled me closer, his arms wrapping around me like a shield, and he held me. I sighed, a long, slow release of breath, the knot of fear, the one that had lived in my stomach for as long as I could remember, the one that had been there since I was a child in a gray foster home, the one that Dean had fed and nurtured. It just dissolved. It was gone. I pressed my face into his chest, breathing in the scent of him. Safe. He held me, and I felt the exhaustion of years, of a lifetime of running, finally settle over me. My eyelids grew heavy. My body, which had been tense for my entire life, finally relaxed. And there, in his arms, in my home, I fell asleep, a deep, peaceful, dreamless sleep, for the very first time. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We would be absolutely thrilled to hear your thoughts, so please share them in English in the comments below. We would also love to know where in the world you are listening from. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Mafia Romance Stories for more content just like this. We appreciate your support more than you know.